On this episode, we visit Zurich. We look at pedestrian refuge islands. We talk with a member of the Executive Council about the new transportation plan. The Swiss Pedestrians Association is defending the sidewalk for pedestrians. Finally, we look at travel mode trends for youth in Switzerland. Stay tuned.
We're in Zurich talking with Christian Thomas. Why are pedestrian refuge islands important?
They are very important for the pedestrians because they have to watch to one direction only at a time. So also children and elderly people can much easier cross a busy road because they don't have to concentrate on two sides and estimate how long it takes until the next car is in the place. And also it's good for a better flow of the cars because if a pedestrian comes to a pedestrian crossing from the left side, the cars are obliged to stop as well as for pedestrians from the right side. And if you divide it up with a refuge island, then the car has to watch out only for the pedestrians coming from the right side and from the island side.
And this refuge island, we also have a bicycle crossing here. How do they work with bicycles?
Well, the bicycles, they are marked here right at the side of the pedestrian crossing. And legally, the bicyclists crossing a carriageway don't have the right of way. But if a bicyclist wants to get the priority over the cars, he always may walk his bicycle over the yellow stripes, and then he has the right of way and the cars have to stop for them.
Do you have a lot of pedestrian refuge islands here in Zurich?
Basically, a refuge island is needed always if there is no traffic light and if there is a frequency of cars which makes it difficult for pedestrians to cross during rush hours. So Zurich is full of pedestrian islands, and that's also our pedestrian organization is always asking for pedestrian islands if a road is constructed new or is improved. We want to see on main roads, we want to see refuge islands in place.
What can you do if the road's not really that wide and it might seem like there might not be enough space for a refuge island?
There are many possibilities. Of course, in many places, the road can be narrower than just as it is usually. But one of the main problems is that we have bicycle lanes, and to squeeze the bicycle lane may be quite dangerous because then you get the situation where large trucks have to go over the bicycle lane, and this is of course not what we want. And in the city of Zurich, a different method has been very successful in only a few places yet, but there is potential. The sidewalk can be made continuous over a whole intersection. So the cars coming from the side street have to go up a bump to come on the sidewalk, and then before they come into the main street. And this continuous sidewalk may be bent a little bit on the intersection, and this way you save enough space to put the refuge island in the middle of the road. And that has been done especially in places where you have 2 carriageways plus 2 tram tracks. And 2 carriageways and 2 tram tracks is just too dangerous for elderly people, or it cannot be used as part of a way to school for children who walk independently. And therefore it's not only a good solution, but a solution necessary in certain places.
So what did they do to get an island in here?
Well, here we got an interesting traffic island because the engineers looked at the situation. How much space do they really need for the car traffic? And for that traffic light down there was not such a big waiting room needed. So they figured that they could give the space, this little space, to the pedestrians and give this space for the turning vehicles and have the waiting room a little bit shortened. And it's an important pedestrian crossing because pedestrians this way have only one carriageway, one lane to cross, and they have to observe 2 tram tracks, and this way this is no problem for the pedestrians.
What can you do if you have 2 lanes in the same direction and you'd like to break up the crossing?
Well, this is always a dangerous situation because if you have the first car stopping and the pedestrian crossing and thinking, well, that's good, I'm ready now to go, and then on the second lane, hidden behind the first car, a motorcycle or a car may come out and not think of stopping, and there we all often get bad crashes. So the city of Zurich has, not yet in many cases, but in a case in Zurich Triemli, there is an island between 2 lanes that go the same direction. It's sort of a special situation because it's sort of a type of roundabout with 2 lanes, and at the same time it's a tram stop right there, and nearby there is a hospital. So we have impaired pedestrians who walk maybe slowly or even with a walking aid or something, and they get an additional island between the 2 lanes in the same direction. And this solution has, in that case, another positive effect. This road comes from outside Zurich, and many drivers are maybe not yet down at the urban speed, and seeing a pedestrian island in the middle of the road helps them to get their speed slowed down.
What's the problem for pedestrians right here behind us?
Well, we are here in front of the Zurich main station. That's the biggest station with a lot of pedestrians all over, and right here we don't have a pedestrian crossing. We have something like a pedestrian island. It looks nearly like it, but it's just for a pole of the traffic light, and therefore a lot of people want to cross here. Theoretically it's illegal, but I haven't heard that fines are given here. But the point is that it would be quite easy to put a pedestrian island, a refuge island, plus a crossing with yellow stripes right here. And like you see these people running over the road, and they don't see in which moment the cars get their green phase and would start their journey. And with a very simple measure, a new pedestrian island, a new pedestrian crossing could be put in place. I've proposed it to the city, and they say they will consider it and they look at it as feasible. But unfortunately, it will take probably years until it will be realized. Also because there are these tram lines going through here, and the whole setup for the public transportation would have to be improved. As you see, a lot of foreigners cross here because they don't know the situation, they don't know that there is an underpass, and so they just cross anyway. And actually, I must say, in many countries, you're obliged to cross in such situations. Fortunately, in Zurich, this is the only such situation where it's really dangerous for pedestrians to cross.
We're talking with Richard Wolf, who's a member of the Executive Council for the City of Zurich. What do you do as a member of the Executive Council?
Okay, I'm one of 9 members of the Executive Council, and I was elected by the people of the City of Zurich, and I'm heading the Department for Transport and Environmental Issues.
And what does your portfolio cover, transportation and environment?
I have 4 branches. So one is the construction of roads and parks and squares. One is the green spaces, the forests, the parks, the trees in the city. One is recycling and disposal of garbage. And one is geomatics, which is a measurement, the surveying of the city.
Where do pedestrians fit into all that?
Mostly in the construction of roads and public spaces, but also in the green spaces. So it's important for pedestrians to know where to walk along the roads, but also in the parks, and to have attractive pedestrian paths with trees, with benches, and not too much noise, not too much pollution. So everything comes together basically in my department.
What sort of guidance has the city had for pedestrian facilities in the past?
We have the general transportation plan, and one section in the transportation plan is just about pedestrian transport, pedestrian traffic. So it focuses on the quality of pedestrian parts of the road, so the sidewalks, but also the special paths, which are just or only for pedestrians, sometimes for pedestrians and cyclists. And we have a new plan every 15 years or so, and we're just about to edit a new plan, to discuss it first in Parliament, in government, in Parliament, and then it will be an issue for a referendum, in a citywide referendum on the new transportation plan, including pedestrian transport.
What's new for pedestrians in the draft that you're working on?
The main new thing is we have a special network, a special path, special walks for pedestrians with enhanced quality, with a more attractiveness, not just along the roads, but also crisscrossing the city on certain specific separate paths for the pedestrians, with tree lined, with shadow, with benches, with separation from the other traffic, so pedestrians can use it not just for leisure or for walking their dogs, but also to go to work, to go to the public institutions, to go to the pool, to the lake, wherever they want to go. So walking becomes more attractive than it is already.
When you talk with your constituents and the voters, do pedestrians come up? Do people talk about the quality of the pedestrian environment in the city?
Yeah, not just now with this new debate on climate issues, but even before, for a long time, pedestrian issues have been an issue, maybe not strong enough or as strong as it could or should be, But it's becoming stronger, it's becoming more powerful because of the climate issues, because it's an ecological way of getting around the city. And together with public transport, which is excellent in this city, and together with cycling in the city, it's the most ecological ways of getting around. And we're also thinking about getting more space in the roads for pedestrians and cyclists, and taking away on the cost of car traffic, car lanes, or parking space. So to convert that into better quality sidewalks and better quality cycle paths, and more trees, more space for green in the city.
If I were to come back to Zurich in a decade, your draft plan becomes final, it gets approved by the voters. What would you like to be able to show me as being different and better in Zurich?
I would certainly show you some of the special walking pedestrian paths that we're planning now with the enhanced quality. And I would also like to show you where we didn't widen, but the opposite. We made them more narrow, the streets for the cars, and get more space for pedestrians and cyclists and green space. That's what I would like to show you. And I would also like to show you some statistics where we could prove that we counted the number of pedestrians and the share of pedestrian traffic as part of the total. And then I would like to show you that we maybe doubled the number of pedestrians in the city of Zurich, and also the length of each way that they undertake, of each section of their commuting, for example, so that people walk longer distances than they do now, and that the number of pedestrians improved, and that the width of the sidewalks has also become bigger.
We're in Zurich, Switzerland, talking with Dominique Buccelli with the Swiss Pedestrians Association. What's going on in terms of defending the sidewalk?
In Switzerland, we had the situation that from the late 70s to the early 90s, the sidewalk situation was getting really better, because there was this referendum about that you have to have a connected sidewalk and footpath network. After this, you had in the late 80s, you have the decision that car parking is illegal on the sidewalks, even motorcycle parking. But then it turned slightly around in the late 90s, where you have more exceptions on the sidewalk. Authorities can open a sidewalk for cyclists, then the scooters without motors is allowed on the sidewalk. Then it was still allowed to park on the sidewalk for everything was on the same category as a bicycle. That follows up when the Segway was put on the same level with the bicycles, and later where the e-scooters became legal in Switzerland before they exist in 2014. So it was every year was a new exception where someone can do a little bit more on the sidewalk, as we heard in the light of 2017 that our national government want to put up the level where kids can drive on the sidewalk to 12 years old, and you have to know that the 8 to 12-year-old cyclists are the second fastest age group of cyclists.
So what can you do about all that? Where do you get started?
We knew that there will be a consultation on it, and so we thought, as we only send a letter from our little organization, it won't help that much. So we started a petition where we say we don't want new exceptions on the sidewalk. We want kids only up to 8 to drive on the sidewalk. We want clear regulations who can drive where and under which rules. It has to be very simple that everyone can understand it. That was the main key things, I think.
What is the petition process in Switzerland? How does that work?
It's quite unofficial thing. So you can launch a petition and you hand it in. So you don't have to have certain amounts of signatures. So this was not the thing. But what's good is as we launched the petition, we had good media coverage on it. So on the whole process when launching it and after while handing in, the media coverage was quite good. And what we really could achieve was that in the consultation, the majority of the Swiss cantons followed our side, and the majority of the other organizations who were be part of the consultation were on our side. But we don't know yet what have been decided, so it could be bad, but it could be good.
Is this going to be a continuing problem you're going to work with, that the sidewalk gets used to stick everything, you can't think of someplace else to put it?
Yeah, I think it's some kind like this. If you see right behind you, we have the traffic sign where we have a temporary parking restriction, and the sign is on the sidewalk, not on the parking lot who is closed. So it's something like this. Oh, if you put it on the sidewalk, it's no problem, and on the road, it's always a problem.
We're talking with Daniel Satter with Urban Mobility Research. What sort of research has been done on how children and young adults get around in Switzerland?
We looked at the national data from 1994 to 2005 and saw quite a change in behavior, at least in the older youngsters and the young adults, about how they travel to school and travel in general. And we also looked at the younger kids and noticed that not much has changed among the younger children at the age between 6 and 12. About 70% are still walking to school, even 2015, and about 1/10 is using the bicycle. Every 10th trip is done by public transport, and about 10% of the kids are being driven to school by car.
And then the middle age group, what did you see there in the way of trends?
There is an interesting decrease in cycling, as an increase in public transport, and also in walking. And there's hardly anyone being driven to school. So that age group wants to be independent. Cycling is about a quarter, and the other two, walking and public transport, are about a third of the trips made to school.
And when you get to the older age group, what trends did you see there?
Interestingly enough, there has been quite a substantial change, not just on the way to school, but in general their travel behavior has changed quite markedly. And there is about half of the trips now, 2015, are done by public transport. The walking trips, that has gone up quite substantially. The walking trips have increased too, and not just the trips to the train station, but also, or the public transport stop, but also the walking trips on their own. And the car trips have decreased, and the cycling trips as well. The cycling trips have dramatically decreased, and the reason for all of this is that the distances to school has increased over the last 20 years substantially, which means the kids now have to use public transport because it's too far with a bicycle. And in order to achieve that, they have their travel passes on the public transport. So they use that. At the destination, they walk more often from A to B. Also at noon, for example, to the lunch place. And interestingly enough, because they have the travel pass, they also use public transport for the leisure time. So they go to the next bigger place, the next bigger city, then use the public transport for that, and at the destination go from A to B again for the leisure trips doing that by walking. So in the leisure time, they use public transport to get to their destination, which is maybe the village, a larger town, a city, and spend the time there. And in between the destinations, be it from the pub to disco or whatever, they actually walk. So altogether, the public transport and the walking increase, but the cycling has gone down substantially and the car usage has gone too, which was partly also due that the public transport offers, the night buses, the night trains, has increased a lot. So the kids can get home safely by using public transport and not needing a car with a designated driver. That way they can be more leisurely doing their outing. And during the trips to school, for example, they enjoy public transport because they can do the internet things, they can do the chats and check their Facebook page and whatnot, talk to each other, while they cannot do that on the bicycle, because particularly in Switzerland we don't have a bicycle infrastructure that's wide enough that allows the kids to ride side by side. So in the bus, in the public transport, they actually enjoying the social aspects. And I think that's one conclusion that we've drawn, that the social aspects we need to pay much more attention to in the analysis of the data in general and in the planning, because kids act according to their social needs just as much as to their economic needs or to any other pull that they may have from other sides. We also have a decrease, like worldwide, of the ownership of driver's licenses. So again, that helps to actually replace car trips by public transport and walking trips.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.